The purpose of this project is to compare a bunch of different varieties and see how well they do in this set of conditions, and to be able to show that to growers in the state of Rhode Island, to give them some potential ideas of how they might be innovative with the mixing of their crops and the varieties of tomatoes that they grow.
Hi, Andy.
Hello, Sajal.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the varieties that you were growing and what worked and what didn't work so well?
Sure. Well, this will involve a tour.
Okay, great.
Right in front of us is a variety called Clermont. It was bred to be one of those cluster tomatoes that you see in the supermarket.
Okay.
And actually, in order for them to be good, nice-sized, uniform cluster tomatoes, you're supposed to prune them to about 5 fruits per cluster. I've been remiss in my pruning.
I was going to say, I see a couple of 6s here.
Yeah, about 7s and 8s, too.
Yeah.
One reason for that is for size, so there's a fairly uniform size. Another is that these tomatoes, all tomatoes, ripen from the oldest first flowers downwards to the later flowers. So it will turn out very often that a few tomatoes will be red at the top of the cluster, and then gradually there's a color transition where the ones on the end, which are the youngest fruits, are still green. These fruits hold really well in the greenhouse. They'll just sit there and they'll wait for these others to ripen.
All right, do you want to show some other varieties?
Sure. Right behind us here,
Yeah, these look
this
great.
is an amazing cherry tomato. It's called Sakura. It's a round red cherry tomato. It tastes delicious. It's really productive.
I can see that.
Yeah, and actually the clusters that you're seeing, these fruit clusters, these are probably a quarter of the size of the fruit clusters that we were having up to about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Slowly, the fruit clusters are getting smaller and smaller as the
Right,
plants
sure.
age.
So good productivity on these ones.
Incredible productivity,
taste.
very vigorous vines. These are some of the longer vines.
Yep,
These
I
are
can
probably
see
like
that.
the 18-footers.
Sure.
Unfortunately, they are seemingly susceptible to this septoria leaf spot,
Yep,
which are,
yep, look
if
at
you look at these leaves now, and even the younger leaves are getting
Yeah.
it. And
That will be its demise, you think, in the
that
end?
will be its demise.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's okay. These guys have been pumping out
Sure.
just incredible numbers of cherry tomatoes. Some might complain that the variety is a little large. They are a fairly large cherry tomato. There are smaller varieties around, no question. I think that if you gave some of these to a potential customer at a farmer's market and said, here, try this, they'd buy it.
Sure.
Wouldn't have any problem with them
Sure.
being too big. This is a grape, what we call a grape tomato. It's sort of a different class of tomato.
Sure.
They're thicker skinned, thicker walled. And this one is called Red Pearl. And it's actually a Johnny Selected Seeds variety.
And how do these ones taste?
These taste great.
Good.
Not a complex flavor, I'll say that.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty simple, sweet, have a little delicate crunch to them.
Sure.
Really good, although I recommend letting them get fully red.
Okay.
And you can do that with these because they hold on the vine just
Sure,
great. They don't, unlike our next variety here.
All right.
This beauty is called Golden Sweet. And this gold color is exactly what it should look like
Right.
for picking. So these would be ready to pick. Unfortunately, Golden Sweet is very crack prone.
Where's mine? Yeah, so what are we looking at here?
This beautiful tomato is called, aptly, Pink Beauty.
All right.
And you'll notice it's kind of pink like a brandywine, which is probably one of everybody's favorite heirloom
Yeah, sure,
tomato.
sure.
This is a hybrid. Great slicing tomato, real old-fashioned tomato flavor. I like it a lot. Right behind us, we can look at this tomato variety. This is called Black Cherry, and actually, if you look through the row to the other side,
Oh, yeah, right.
there's a
That's the way I
couple
saw
here that are of the ripe color. This one here is kind of darker, and that's what the appropriate ripeness color would be. This is a delicious cherry tomato. People generally are saying that this is their favorite cherry tomato of the varieties I'm growing.
Okay.
It has its problems, though. First of all, it seems to be more susceptible to disease than others. I've actually trimmed off a lot of leaves down below
Right.
here that were quite diseased. Another problem is they're very, as we say, splitty. They tend to split with too much water in the ground because they don't seem to, I guess their skins are thin, and that's
Okay.
one reason why people like them. They have
Sure.
a nice thin skin. But the result is they split.
Okay.
Sometimes you just look at them and they split. So that's a problem. Okay, this is another round red cherry tomato. It's named Suzanne. And
Also pretty tall.
yeah, very vigorous grower. Has been more susceptible to powdery mildew, I've found. Maybe that's because it was right next to the black cherry, and it's quite intermingled with the black cherry now.
Right, I see that.
Black cherry seems more susceptible to things in general. Suzanne is a little bit of a smaller round red cherry tomato, a bit smaller than the Sakura. The flavor is great. Most people can't tell the taste difference between the two. Again, these fruit clusters are much smaller than they were earlier in the season. They're very productive, not quite as productive as Sakura. This is called Pizanno. Here's one that's completely red. This is your typical San Marzano or Roma type.
Sure.
And these have been incredibly productive, great tasting tomato. I've made a lot of sauce from them myself
Yeah,
already.
Good.
I've been very happy with them, and just look at all the fruit that's still on the way. They are probably, though, the most susceptible variety we have in here to blossom end rot.
Sure.
Sanitation is important.
Sure.
It's good to remove diseased stuff and get it out of here as much as possible.
All right, well, this is looking productive over here.
These plants are like plants of steel. This is a variety called Revellski. I was excited about it because it has a very distinctive, as the description read, a distinctive look to it. It has kind of these lobes, these little creases.
It looks like a
in it.
pumpkin.
Yeah, very pumpkin-like, that's right. It's a sturdy fruit. It develops a nice full red to it. Plants are disease-resistant, vigorous. The vines down there, I mean, those are huge. They're really thick. This
They
is
sure
incredible.
are. Looks like rope.
Yeah. The problem with these, though, is that they seem to maintain a pretty green core. If you cut into this, there's a lot of green right down through to the other side. And it might be that this variety is more susceptible to potassium deficiency, especially as it concerns fruit ripening.
What other varieties? Yeah, this one's interesting behind
yeah,
me.
here's a really
Neat looking.
very
I
interesting
don't know
looking.
how the customers feel about a interesting looking tomato like
I think
that.
everybody's intrigued by them. This actually is an unripe fruit. Notice it has a green on the bottom. It has this deep purple. That's from a plant pigment called anthocyanin. Problem is, well, here's a ripe fruit right there.
So you're picking them, they're supposed to eventually get red? When are you picking them?
This
When are
is,
they?
This is considered ripe.
Wow, okay.
Problem is, it's got kind of a strange flavor.
That sounds
And most people are attracted to it, would like to buy it and try it, and then they're disappointed.
right, okay.
These gorgeous golden-colored little plum tomatoes, or little paste tomatoes, this is called Golden Rave. Golden Rave is delicious. Probably for all my growers who were involved in this project with me, their customers love this. And all the growers are saying this is a winner. They're going to grow this again.
Okay.
If I help to introduce even one new variety to these growers, I'm really happy about that. So.
And this might be a silly question, but when you cook these down, do they retain the yellow color?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
you can
pretty
make a
neat.
yellow sauce
I like
for
that.
sure. Yep.
Cool.
Also, vigorous plants, disease resistant, very healthy. Next down the line, we have this gorgeous red, also a kind of paste tomato, not as long, heavy tomato.
Oh, wow. Wow. Much heavier than I thought it was going to be.
This is called Granadero. It's as in from Granada. I don't know if that means it came from Granada, Spain.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I
Okay.
haven't really looked into it, but that's what it's called, Granadero. It's a nice paste tomato, very high solid matter content. Makes a great sauce. I've also made sauce with this. Vigorous plant. probably in second place for overall productivity behind Clermont.
Okay.
When I say productivity, I'm talking on a per plant basis, so pounds per plant.
Okay.
Exact figures I can't tell you now. I haven't tabulated all the data, and we still keep picking. But probably Clermont is going to produce something like 25 pounds per plant.
Oh, wow.
These guys might get up to 20 pounds per plant. So it's a lot of tomatoes in a small space. Here's another paste-typed tomato. So this is called Juliette. Very small, relatively speaking.
They do. They look like they'd be great for sun-dried tomatoes or dehydrated
They are.
tomatoes.
In fact, I did dry some, and they're terrific.
Yeah, great.
Everybody tasted them, and they loved them. I did that here in our lab on the experimental farm. Also really good for making salsa. Like your typical paste tomato, high dry matter content. So really good in terms of not just for making sauce, but for making salsa.
Right, because you're not left with all that gelatinous
You don't have all that liquid, all that water. You just got the nice kind of a salad that you like to have in a fresh salsa.
Okay. Now, with there being so many varieties in here, do you find that between like the smaller cherry tomatoes and the larger slicing tomatoes, that there's different needs for those types of plants?
Oh, that's a great question.
Okay.
I found, I did tissue testing twice on all of these 13 varieties that we're growing.
Right.
And in both cases, there was just about no difference at all in the nutrient levels in the leaf tissue between all these varieties.
So that makes things a little easier, I would think.
Yeah, I think for me that's a learning experience, and that's not something I've ever read anywhere in any book. That usually there is a range of nutrient levels that are considered acceptable for tomatoes. But the numbers on these are so close, it's actually astounding. So I thought it was really interesting that not really a great deal of difference in nutrient demand between all these different, not just varieties, but classes of tomatoes. We have slicers, cherry tomatoes, we have grape tomatoes.
It's a lot of varieties here.
Yeah. But this just scratches the surface. There are literally hundreds of indeterminate tomato varieties that may do well in high tunnels. But I hope this demonstration will give the growers some ideas of the potential quality and productivity that's out there.